So recently on Twitter, I saw this take, and I wish I saved the tweet, but I did not, unfortunately. But they were saying how Frieren made them realize how much they hate isekai anime. And now Frieren is not an isekai anime by all means, but Frieren is a fantasy anime. And isekai does fall within the category of fantasy anime, but when we really think about it, and it's so interesting, especially since a lot of people have been saying the people's feelings of Frieren are kind of split, right? It's either like boring as hell or it's enjoyable. And for me, I'm right at enjoyable. I really like Frieren a lot. You have to look at it as the story perspective of it. And it's funny because I feel like a lot of the people that find Frieren boring are the people who are looking for the more exciting, like fantasy, overpowered, always killing everything, non-stop action type of stuff. Understandably so, whatever people are feeling, especially people who love shonen anime, who love fast-paced action type of stuff. Why would people look at Frieren and be like, damn, I hate isekai anime? And the reason being is because the isekai tropes are very common. I've talked about this before where I said, when you really think about isekai, what do people think about? Either overpowered main character, harem, and the story is pretty linear and there's not much happening except defeating the demon lord. Like a lot of the stories are about the same. And why is it like that? It's because people like me are constantly watching the isekai tropey anime where it's like almost the same. I'm not saying that it's all the same, but a lot of the tropes are very, very similar. I may be a cause of that. That's why I call myself isekai trash. I'm not calling the isekai trash, though some of them are pretty trash, but I think I'm the trash. I'm straight trash. But there are some isekai anime that I think are really, really good. Like when I'm talking about really, really good, they're like, they kind of foretell a different type of story outside of being the overpowered protagonist. Like there's so much deeper meaning into the series, I would say. And these are like 3 isekai anime. I've mentioned them all before, but these are 3 isekai anime that I think are important. That I think if you enjoyed, not if you enjoyed Frieren, but if you want an isekai anime with a little bit more depth outside of, overpowered, I think these are a good watch. Now this one is pretty easy to understand. This recommendation is very, very easy to understand, but it is an enjoyable isekai anime. Now granted, there is a lot of dialogue, but with that dialogue, there's a lot of deeper things happening and foreshadowing and a lot of things that are going to come later on. I started recently rewatching it in dub while I work out, so I don't have to read and think, so I can walk away and do it, etc., which is Reincarnated as a Slime. Now this anime, when I first started watching it, it was fun, and then season 2 it got really deep. And that's why I'm always like, if for people who are kind of just, I realize my headphones are on the wrong way. If people are just kind of hopping into the isekai train, I think this is like a really good example to watch. But also it's going to be like, damn, if this is isekai, then it holds a standard. And I think when it came to like for season 2, there was so much dialogue happening when they were having their meetings. It led to the big fight at the end. And season 3 is coming. Season 3 is coming very, very soon. I'm super excited. Reincarnated as a Slime, all the characters are likable. It's hella feels good. There are moments where you get into your feelings. Funny as hell. I feel like it checkmarks a lot of emotions that I want to feel when I'm watching an anime. And it makes you think too. It makes you want to foretell what's going to happen. Because most isekai anime, you could kind of predict and predict correctly what's going to happen. But when it comes to Reincarnated as a Slime, you don't know what Rimuru plans on doing. You know he wants to do good, but other than that, like, it kind of changes over time. Like him, I think him becoming a demon lord kind of just was meant to happen. The direction he takes, the things that go on, it's kind of catches you by surprise. And I like Slime a lot. It's like a top 5 isekai for me. I think these 3 are like top 5 isekai for me, but I'm only mentioning 3, you know, because sometimes like it's a lot. Now the next one I'm going to recommend, which is not going to surprise a lot of people, is ReZero. Now ReZero is a doozy. It's a doozy. It's a lot. I get it, because Super's kind of like a shitty character when you really think about the grand scheme of things. Because of he's a shitty character, you could kind of relate. And I think that's why a lot of people were mad about Super, because they expected him to be the main character, to be always on the good path. But I'm going to be completely honest. Sometimes I make the bad decisions. Sometimes I don't make the right decisions, especially when I'm pressured at a certain point. And sometimes I don't see things from my view, especially when there's a lot happening. So from an outside perspective, we always look at it like, okay, why aren't you doing it this way? Why are you rejecting Rem for Amelia? When I really think about it more, it makes a little bit more sense. At the same time, it doesn't. But ReZero has so many layers, and the fact that Subaru can be a relatable character to a lot of people, and there's layers of growth, and that's one of the most enjoyable parts about ReZero is his growth as a character, and also the characters around him and how he's able to bring people together. And you don't know if they're on Subaru's side. You don't know if they're going to end up going against him later. You don't know if they're going to betray him, or you don't know if they're going to join his team and they're going to end up becoming good, or we really don't know. And each character has so many layers of their emotions into their characters and the purpose of that whole world, and you won't understand it completely until you like go back and watch this and that. ReZero is such a fun anime, and also Rem is top tier. A lot of the characters in ReZero are phenomenal, and it's like an isekai that I always recommend. But a lot of the people who are kind of just not deep into the anime thing, they kind of have to pace themselves when they watch it, because it is a lot. It is a lot to watch. But when you kind of get into the groove of things, I personally really like ReZero a lot. This last one, I talked about it briefly, but I don't think I talked about it enough, and I really like it. Ascendance of a Bookworm. Now, weirdly enough, Ascendance of a Bookworm, only season 1 is on Crunchyroll. Where did the rest of it go? They lost their licensing or something? I see it on Amazon, but you gotta buy it. So watch it by any means that you guys can watch it. Rather than the main protagonist, Mind, becoming this overpowered, can take over everything, she's actually born as a frail child in a poor family. But she does have a lot of mana, but she can't control it. And if she doesn't find a way to control it, it could essentially kill her. What she does have, what is overpowered, is the knowledge that she brought over from the previous world and her addiction to books. So her whole purpose of her being isekai'd into this world where paper and books are too expensive, she tries to find ways to make her own book and make books more accessible for everyone else. Because if you're a commoner like her, education is really hard to come by. Books are extremely expensive to make, and therefore makes it really expensive to own and to look at and to read. The treasure. On top of that, the whole hierarchy of the church, nobleism, there's a lot. There is a lot what you're really drawn towards to in this anime, outside of, you know, obviously the main character is Mind's family, their situation, how they try to overcome it with Mind, especially with her getting constantly sick because how frail she is. This anime was so different for me. It was I think this was like a different take of isekai for me. I think it was one of the first different takes of it, and I was so drawn into it. There's not a lot of action, barely any, but the drama in it, the feelings, the emotions, the storytelling, you wanting to see Mind complete her goal of making books. I enjoy the hell out of this one. Ascendance of a Bookworm, guys. Give it a chance. Give it a chance. I know it sounds interesting. I know a lot of my viewers and a lot of people want tons of action anime, but sometimes it's good to just watch something different. And that was different for an isekai for me. But yeah, those are 3 recommendations that I would normally make when I'm like, hey, what isekai anime should I watch? And now a lot of people have watched these 3 anime. But when it comes to people saying that they hate isekai anime because they're not like Frieren, there's a lot of anime that are isekai that I think are not on the level of Frieren, but they're just as enjoyable. I consider these 3 just as enjoyable as Frieren. I loved Frieren. It was so good. I made a review talking about how good it was, and the season wasn't even done. But these are 3 anime that I enjoyed more or equally to Frieren. And there's a lot of fantasy anime outside of Frieren that are so good. The first one that comes to my brain is like Wandering Witch. I like the Wandering Witch. There's a lot of fantasy anime in general that you should definitely give a watch, and there's a lot of isekai anime that you should definitely watch that are going to be either you're gonna enjoy it or you're not. But for someone like me who has a lot going on in their life, people think I'm just here making YouTube videos. No, there's a lot. IRL, people deal with different situations, right? But sometimes you just want to turn off your brain and watch some isekai, and that's just me.